Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with the Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramon. I'm so excited to have you join us today. Got a very unique guest. Never talked about this before. So for me, I get to learn with all of you, which is really cool. Now, we started this podcast exploring the idea of the servant's heart and how you can use it in your business and your life. This carries over to both sides. Approaching this makes an impact in your world. How would you like to do that every day, which I get to do? So we're going to learn more about that. Our guests are going to motivate you, inspire you, and impact you, and educate you to impact in your world as well. So the servant's heart, with all these resources, you should be able to make a difference in your own world. And here's your homework today. Once you think about, audience, after you listen to this show or watch this show, think about how you can serve yourself and serve others today. Again, back to what kind of impact will you create today? I want to thank my incredible sponsor, Pantheon, joining a community of high-income entrepreneurs and business leaders who are creating this world-changing thought leader platform to not only grow your business, but again, make an impact and difference. That's what we're all about here on this show. And let's get started. I want to welcome Jimmy to the show. Jimmy, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Vestibular therapy. I'm going to call it that. You'll dive into it, what that really means. It's a cool name, actually.
Yeah. So I'm a physical therapist. I have my doctorate. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. And I think when people think physical therapy, they think a lot about orthopedics. They think about back pain, elbow pain. People don't realize that actually physical therapy treats a whole host of disorders. And my specialty, vestibular therapy, what we treat is actually dizziness and vertigo. Vestibular, the word vestibular relates to the vestibular system. And your vestibular system is comprised of multiple things, but generally you can think of the inner ear, right? Those inner ear balance centers. When something goes off there, or that inner ear also coordinates with your brain to create your sense of balance. If something goes off at either side, this is an oversimplification. Everything goes wrong there, then the result is dizziness or vertigo. And then what we have to do is basically through physical therapy interventions is we have to recalibrate things so that you can restore your sense of equilibrium.
Yeah, go ahead, Davey.
I was just going to say, I wish more people knew about it. It's the evidence behind vestibular therapy is very, very high. It's extremely effective. And the main problem we have now is people aren't getting seen soon enough, and there aren't enough practitioners out there to meet the demand.
Wow, that's a problem. And I'm glad you simplified it for me, especially before the audience, because we're not going to go to school like you did, all the great schooling that you went to learn all this. You talked about migraines. They are like the flu, like pain in a lot of people have it. I don't know what the size of that patient group is, but that's one thing that you really focus on. Talk about that.
Yeah, so vestibular disorders feed well into migraine. Migraine is a neurological disorder. It's way more than a headache, and what migraine can often result is that it can also result in vestibular impairments. So it's not uncommon for people who have migraine to also experience things like, dizziness, lightheadedness, trouble in busy environments, visual motion. So it's very common. That being said, there are also a lot of migraine disorders that exist that don't have a dizziness component. And that's kind of the other side of things I like to treat. I also like to treat headache disorders. So I do vestibular therapy and headaches. And then getting to your question about how common is migraine. Migraine is extremely common, and they're a very underrepresented population. So migraine is actually the second leading cause of disability in the world, just behind low back pain, right? And actually, out there, if you look at this document, there's a document called the International Classification of Headache Disorders. And if you look in this document, what you're actually going to find is there exist over 300 headache disorders in the world. So, there's a huge depth to the field of headache, which overlaps with vestibular disorders a lot. But there's this huge, it's basically the world of headache is very deep, and there's a lack of awareness and representation both among the public and even among healthcare professionals. So I think, again, getting back to PT, people don't realize that PT is also pretty effective for treating migraine. And what makes migraine interesting is that it exists on a huge spectrum. So I think most of us are familiar with migraine as a headache. And then if you know a little bit more, you might know it comes with light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, but you can also have more extreme examples where it causes dizziness or vertigo. Because it is a neurological disorder, it can affect all systems of the body. So we even have something called stomach migraine, where basically the migraine elicits stomach pain and pain in the stomach, bowel disruptions. We have something called hemiplegic migraine. These are a little rare, but they exist. There's something called hemiplegic migraine. Hemiplegic migraine basically means during your migraine attack, you have weakness on one side of the body, and it presents just like a stroke. But if you get the workup done and they don't find a stroke, it's very likely that you have this hemiplegic disorder. So very scary. Talking from my own experience, I fall into something called, basically the class I belong in is called the atypical migraine. So it's complicated when they have a catch-all basket like that. And so my migraines are very atypical. So I don't get sound sensitive, I don't get light sensitive, but I get a lot of autonomic symptoms. So I get a lot of nasal congestion. My right eyelid, this eyelid will actually start to droop down. Ear ringing, headache, obviously, and then neck tightness. And then when it gets really bad, I actually develop something called ataxia, transient ataxia. And ataxia is basically the medical terminology for when you lose coordination of your body. So I lose the ability to walk in a straight path, essentially. So yeah, so that's just a quick primer on migraine, my own experience with migraine, and just how complex it can be.
Yeah, being a patient yourself gives you the opportunity to be able to understand what people are telling you, going, hey, I've done this or seen that. I mean, you could be a doctor without having symptoms. It just makes it a little more powerful. And this is doing business with a servant's heart. And I said life as well, but talk about, I'm thinking a founder, a CEO, an entrepreneur that's dealing with migraines, it's affecting their business. How do we fix that?
Well, on my end, I think, as business owners, you and I both, you have the podcast, I have this business, I think we're the type of people who are inclined to just work nonstop, right? We're kind of workaholics. But if you have migraines like I do, you have a disability like I do, you really have to be judicious with your time. And you really have to jump into other skills like pacing. Pacing is really important. That's something I really stress with my patients, because life doesn't stop for anybody, right? You have this migraine disorder, it's highly disabling, but you still have to continue on. And so it becomes really important to develop these other skills so that you can manage what you're living with, but still be moving forward every day.
People forget in business, entrepreneur, whatever you are, your health's most important, because something like this could bankrupt the company if the founder, per person is having a problem. That's where you come in. What are the steps somebody should take as they're listening to you, Jimmy, going, man, I need to get checked out? Do they get checked by their doctor? What's that journey look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I definitely think you need a neurologist on board if you have migraine. PT, we're very effective at treating migraine, but we're not effective at treating, there's so many variants out there. There are some that we're better at versus others, right? So if we have migraine patients who have basically the more cervical, the more neck involvement there is in the migraine, the more effective the physical therapy is going to be on some level. And then also actually dizziness and vertigo, vestibular migraine, that also responds pretty well to physical therapy. But as I mentioned, there's this whole spectrum of headache disorders, right? So you really need to be, we call it a multidisciplinary approach. I think having the neurologist on board, having some kind of psychological support is also really important. And kind of going from there. Yeah.
Yeah, and to relate this, I'm a big sports guy. I played a lot of sports, so it's an athlete. Let's take the ACL. He tore his ACL, gets the surgery, and then goes to rehab. You do the same thing. The neurologist goes, diagnose it, and then they come to you. Similar path, right?
Actually, so the good thing is, we live in the United States. So to see a neurologist, it takes about I think probably about 6 months to get into the see a neurologist. So you definitely start with your PCP. But the good thing in California and a lot of the United States is we have something called direct access. So you can actually come see a physical therapist directly without a referral. You don't need a referral until 6 weeks later in your plan of care. So definitely start by going to see a physician just to get on track, get the PCP to write the referral to neurology. But you could definitely start PT early, and you can, let me put it this way. So you can go see a PT early. They can start giving you the lifestyle advice that you need to do. They can start addressing the impairments, specific impairments that you have. And you can make a pretty substantial difference. Some of these lifestyle modifications, especially exercise, the studies are showing that it's just as effective as taking a medication. So depending on the case, it might just be all you need. But ideally, you need some guidance. Ideally, you see a headache specialist, and that's where therapy really comes in.
Man, you got my heart so excited right now because healthcare is a mess. You're right. It's 6 weeks, 6 months, and you have to deal with a migraine where I love the opportunity to reach out to you. And they can reach out to you. We'll get his contact info after in case you got migraines, dizziness, and this stuff, where I can come to you, make that appointment, and you do them virtually, and you can help me get started on the right path before seeing a neurologist. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a servant's heart right here. This is where I've been waiting to hear. It's powerful. What are some tips for somebody listening that may not be able to work with you, but deals with vestibular issues?
So definitely find a vestibular clinic near you, a vestibular therapist. There are directories online. I think I'm blanking on the name. The acronym is VEDA. I think it's the Vestibular Disorders Association. That's usually a good place to start to find a vestibular therapist. And I think they have a directory for vestibular providers in general. So so even finding a physician, you could probably go through the VEDA. I think that's a good place to start for a lot of people. If you're not really dealing with dizziness or vertigo, and you're more concerned about headaches, ideally you want to find someone who specializes in headaches, but I would say for a lot of people, you would still benefit from just going to a general orthopedic physical therapist, because a lot of the time, the more you can just kind of address, there's a lot of cervical neck involvement with migraine. And if they can go in and they can help you out, take care of that piece, it should make a big difference, depending on the skill. Ideally, you want to find a headache specialist, but there aren't many out there. I know I'm one, and then I know there's 2 more in the country, and that's all I know. Jeez. So it's not really out there right now. But I would say even going to a general PT, it's good to get started, right? Something's better than nothing. And PTs nowadays, the standard is very high. We all have our doctorates, so yeah.
I was just going to ask you, so they said you have a doctorate, so you definitely can simplify this, because I don't have a doctorate. I never will, which thank you for doing that. I love stories, Jimmy, especially something like this. Can you tell us a story or two of people that you work with and the benefit they got?
Sure. So funny thing is, I had my business in the Bay Area for a couple years, and then I decided to move to San Diego this past March, so about a month and a half ago, to be closer to some family. And so I got my first client here, and it's kind of funny. I got him because I have a car magnet on my car, and it says "Reclaim your life from concussions, headaches, and dizziness." So this guy calls me and he's like, "I've been dizzy for 4 years. I've seen neurology, I've seen doctors, none of them have been able to tell me what's going on. None of them have given me any treatments. They just say I'm normal. So I go and see him, and I've been seeing him. To be fair, he's a superstar. Like, I've seen him now for 4 visits, and he's telling me he's like 70, 80% better. So I think that just goes to show the effectiveness of vestibular therapy. Sometimes with these chronic cases, people start saying, oh, with chronic cases, things aren't as effective. But I think with vestibular therapy, you'll find that actually that's not true. Like, we really can make a big impact on these chronic cases. This guy had, dizziness undressed for 4 years. And I go in and I do the evaluation. I find what is difficult. Because dizziness can be a result of multiple things. Maybe it's an issue with your eyes. Maybe it's an issue with your ears. Maybe it's an issue with your neck. Maybe it's an issue with your brain. Maybe it's an issue with one kind of eye movement or one kind of neurological reflex versus the other. Doing a solid evaluation, really honing in on what exactly is the most difficult and most challenging, and then training that system. It's just like training your muscles, but you're training your eyes, your ears, your neurological vestibular system. And you can make a huge impact that way. So really happy with the way this guy is turning out. I really look forward to working with him every time. And the thing is, he does his homework. So, and that's key. He does his homework. I could see you once a week, but if you're not doing your homework and the exercises are being underdosed, then the improvement becomes difficult. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't think of a better story you could tell, because it started bad. I mean, I can't believe somebody's being told for 4 years, you have headaches, dizziness, excuse me, live with it, basically. I don't know if they told them that, but what I'm hearing is live with it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing we can do. You come in 4 years later, and in weeks, 70%, he's probably on cloud 9. And
Yeah.
I love that you said he's a superstar. Audience,
Mm-hmm.
listen to this. When your practitioners tell you what to do it. Don't come back 5 weeks later and go, it doesn't work. Well, did you do all this stuff? I'm glad you said that, because
Yeah.
you probably dealt with that. I know other doctors on my shows have said the same thing. And I love the word superstar, because he really is. He's making a difference.
Yeah. I will say, so, we talk about patients not doing their homework. I want to say, with the populations I work with, obviously I want them to do the homework, but I can totally understand if they don't, because these are highly disabling, highly distressing disorders. People are very anxious. Some of them come to me at the lowest point of their lives. They lack the motivation, right? So I think that's where the soft skills as a therapist becomes extra important. How do you motivate your patient? How do you encourage your patient? How do you validate your patient? These are very important skills. I always tell people, maybe physical therapy students or other practitioners who want to get into vestibular therapy, the hard skills will get you started, but it's the soft skills that are going to take you far. And that applies especially to patient care.
Stand on the mountaintops and preach that, brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because healthcare is missing the soft skills. It is. I've dealt with some stuff with my wife's parents and stuff, and hearing stories. I love that you said that, because it's about the patient. It's not about the doctor. It's not about what you know. And what you don't know, you don't know. And the poor patient doesn't know. And soft skills, if your doctor's out there listening, I know some of you are, work on those soft skills. It's so powerful. We're coming to the end here, but I really want to know the answer to this question. I think I know, but you could have gone anywhere in physical therapy. What inspired you to get into vestibular therapy and dizziness and migraines and concussions?
So I think it was largely based on my own experience. I have, I have this chronic migraine. It does come with some dizziness, and actually, my deficits are more visual. So I have vision deficits. So, and then that kind of jumps into the field of vision therapy, which would be a whole nother podcast. So largely my own experience, but I think also a bit out of necessity. So. In addition to have the migraine, I have a chronic pain disorder called fibromyalgia, which means I have, a lot of pain. And, when I first got out of school, I didn't have this. And I was very into treating neurology. In school, when I started school, I wanted to do orthopedics like most people, but it didn't take me very long to realize, oh, I was actually much more interested in neurology. So I was working a lot with my favorite population was stroke. So people who had strokes, teaching them how to walk again. That's probably some of the most rewarding work I've ever done in my life. But it got to a point with my pain disorders that it was becoming very physically taxing for me. I couldn't sustain it. So I had to make some changes. And I knew I didn't want to go back to orthopedics. So that's, I wanted to stay in neurology. So this field, dizziness and vertigo, headaches, it allows me to still work with these neurological populations, but it's a lot easier on my body. So sometimes when you deal with a lot of chronic health issues and stuff, sometimes you do need to make big changes. And it's not the end of the road. Sometimes it leads you down another path that can be really wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, because pivoting in business, and you have a business, so this is a business because it's a business show as well. That's powerful, because you could have fought through it because your passion, sometimes your passion for business is not what you can do, like what happened with you.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working. And you're still being a servant's heart, still helping people. I go back to soft skills, audience. If your doctor doesn't have soft skills, either tell them or find another doctor. Sorry to be so blunt, but hope Jenny,
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, you understand what I'm saying. It's just,
yeah,
it's really missing.
Yeah.
Let's end with a fun. This has been a great show. I've
Thank
learned
you.
a lot. I got notes here. Audience, hope you've taken notes. We'll get his contact info in a minute. But let's do a fun question. Let's learn more about Jimmy. We know a lot about you now, but let's learn some fun stuff. So I've got
Okay.
a reservation at a restaurant in San Diego for you, table of 4. You'll sit in one of the chairs. Who would you invite, whether they're dead or alive, and what food would you order for the table?
Very interesting. Who would I invite to the dinner table? I'm thinking probably musicians. I am a musician, and I'm actually a huge metalhead. So I would. Oh, you know what? There's this drummer on YouTube. He's called El Estepario Cibriano, and he's absolutely amazing. The guy is a machine. I would love to pick his brain. Um, and I think I will order Chinese food so I have an excuse for all the drummers to play drums, without bringing drumsticks. I think I'll do that. Um, yeah, that's what I'll do.
It's one of the best answers. I would never have thought heavy metal. Did you say heavy metal? Yeah.
Yeah. Death
I
metal.
never would. Yeah,
Yeah.
death metal. I never would have thought that this is why I love that question. And the chopsticks thing. Kudos to you. I've asked this 100 times. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I want to thank you, because truly in the healthcare, you're a servant's heart. I'm going back to the soft skills that you developed and that you're working with. This is just, you've blessed our audience. I know people listening, some of the people are going to go, how can I get a hold of Jimmy? So how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's pangphysicaltherapy.com. So P-A-N-G, like pang of hunger. That's my last name, pangphysicaltherapy.com. And then you'll find all my contact information on there. So my phone number, my email. You can call or text the number. I don't have a front desk or anything. Everything comes straight to me. So when you contact me, it literally goes straight to me on my phone. And you can check out my Instagram. The handle is @pangphysicaltherapy. Kind of check out my content, see what I do, and you can also direct message me through there.
And audience, he ends with a servant's heart by giving his phone number that's direct to him. He does not that people with admins have that. When you're bigger, you have to do that. But I appreciate that. And Jimmy, thank you for taking the time. This has, again, been a fantastic show. Audience, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And here's the reason I believe. These links are gifts. These shows are gifts. You're listening to this, and I've got a couple of people I'm going to share this show with that have talked about dizziness. You're talking to somebody and they're complaining about dizziness. Like the story he said, for 4 years, this guy's dealing with dizziness. Well, you can impact somebody in weeks or months, or just make that impact as they've been dealing with that. So with that being said, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give them a gift. And as always, me and Jimmy want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see all of you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.